Hello, hello. I'm Avalon, and this is Voice Notes from the Chrysalis, my 21 episode podcast where I share all the golden nuggets that I've discovered from deeply transforming over the past 5 years in celebration of my digital course, Discover Yourself, getting launched on December 21st for the early birds and December 28th for everybody else. Ooh, I'm excited to talk about past lives today. And I'm going to expound upon if this is, if you're well versed in this kind of terminology, I'm going to broaden that topic just a little bit. If you're not into this topic, you don't gotta listen, okay? But these realizations and this information was necessary for how I got to where I am today. It's been a part of the transformation, and I'm not one to hold back about that stuff. Yeah, see you in the next episode if you don't care about this topic, but I definitely believe in past lives, and I believe that, as in our soul has been reincarnated multiple times. I believe that our soul has existed embodied and not necessarily embodied, for long periods of time. I also want to expand on this topic a little bit of kind of like generational, like healing your family lineage and your ancestors. And that is different. Like I think of like past lives as kind of like your soul's heritage, your soul's lineage, and kind of like generational healing and healing your like lineage is more like healing your bloodline, like your genetic bloodline tied to your body. But I've had powerful experiences with both. If you remember, I think our second episode, me talking about how remembering a past life like dissolved and healed suicidal ideation that I'd been dealing with for my whole entire life. If you're curious about that, go back to episode 2 if you missed it. Um, but yeah, I've kind of known from a very early age that past lives were a thing. And I think it's actually really important part of our healing. And when we are in the throes of transformation and dying and being reborn, sometimes the things that we have to let go are ingrained as deep as like our soul's lineage or our bloodline. Yeah. So I feel like, especially people like in my generation, I'm a millennial. Um, I feel like there's a lot of people doing like generational healing and family healing and like being the cycle breaker and being the first woman in my bloodline that has been able to do whatever the fuck she wants for the most part. And that's really, really, really powerful. And it goes back to this idea that in order to truly become who we are, you have to do this level of like deprogramming and shedding of other stuff. So yeah, more like in the lineage, like bloodline kind of healing. I feel like stuff lives in that space, which is really like our bodies and our DNA, our psyche. Like they're finding that there is genetic coding for like mental patterns and behavioral patterns, like how we behave with our bodies, which is insane and crazy. So like there's a lot there. For me, the pattern that comes to mind as an example is how, on my dad's side, my paternal grandfather was adopted, so we don't really know much about that history. And I don't know, there's interesting stuff there. There's interesting stuff with all the family stuff, and I'm sure there is for you too, most of you at least. But on my mom's side, there's a very clear pattern of mm, and like learn like when we're being socialized, especially like around money and how the world works. There's a very clear pattern in my family of everyone being in service of others. My like grandfather was a pastor, my grandma was a teacher's aide, not even a full-on teacher, a teacher's aide. Um, Maternal uncle, like physical therapist or occupational therapist. Sorry, I can't remember. And mom has been like a caseworker for various like groups of people, and has always like the theme is always and in our family prayer growing up, like we'd say grace around the table, and we didn't do this my whole entire life, but it like caught on at a certain point where we did it more regularly. Our family prayer was very short, sweet, but had this coding in it as well, which was, Dear Lord, bless us food for our good, our lives to your service, and keep us ever mindful of the needs of others. Amen. And that's a beautiful prayer. And no real argument with it, but is just another sign of how the pattern of work yourself to the bone because everyone has needs that are more important than yours. Everyone will always need something from you over your own needs for yourself. And you just have to wait for someone else to take care of you. And that patterning like very much was like encoded into my family. And then with money, like those are all helping professions that don't earn like a good salary. Maybe I'm not sure actually about the physical therapist, occupational therapist. Depends. But like, yeah, very much like not being ambitious, not wanting to take up space, not like suppressing needs, suppressing wants, like that kind of like messaging, and also like I don't know, just like a lot of unspoken thoughts about what is a good salary, and what is a sustainable salary, what, and like no real thought for creating like a legacy, like either work or a body of work, a business, an entity, or a trust, money, like investments, anything that like li anything that could be a legacy, like living beyond you. Like no thoughts about that. And I don't know. I don't actually yet know. Maybe I'll find out. I don't know where this comes from, but I have always strongly, strongly felt that like I am meant to leave a legacy. Not just for like my children, but for many, many, many other people. And we're on that journey to find out exactly what that is and make that happen. But I, yeah, I very much have felt like being that cycle breaker and challenging the idea of giving of yourself to others forever and ever and ever, and just hoping that you get seen and cared for and taken care of somewhere along the way. And that I want to be clear, like that's there's beauty in that and generosity. And you know, if you know me personally, I think you know me to be really generous, but and like loving person. But I also have boundaries so that I can continue to love and care for my people. Because I've learned the hard way so many times in so many facets and so many different types of relationships that um allowing yourself to be like disrespected or having your boundaries crossed, or yeah, like giving of yourself to someone who does not have your best interest in mind is so detrimental and toxic and harmful. Um, and was something I like, I could not sustain because I can't create a legacy if I am constantly draining myself to people who do not match that, that do not reciprocate that. So, I definitely feel like the past lives and lineage healing is so critical and it is abstract and sometimes it doesn't make sense. But thinking about, especially for your lineage, like the history of your family and what patterns there are, patterns in health, patterns in behavior, patterns in occupation or money situations or family and how many kids they have and personalities. Like there's a lot to be gleaned. And then superimposing that on your beliefs, yeah, about yourself, about the world, about how things work, can be very enlightening. And then you can go back and, if you need to, rewrite your limiting beliefs if you discover any. But with regards to past lives, that's more like an individual soul history. I feel like that resonates has resonated so much for me and I have intentionally worked with three different practitioners over the past 5 years. Yeah. And have worked through so much. And again, I don't know, you could consider this to be like snake oil, and that's totally okay. But regardless, like I've felt relief and results and feeling like I can actually achieve what I want to achieve, that I can like leave behind something that has been energetically limiting me. Like maybe like one of the more recent things, patterns that came up in the most recent like energetic healing that I did a few months ago was around healing a past life where I was killed essentially for not like subscribing to the local religion. And being different and like standing apart. And that luckily feels very healed, actually, like saying it out loud now. I'm like, yeah, of course I stood apart. Of course I was different. Of course. Yeah. Duh. But at the time I was like, oh, like I felt like hearing about that and being having it be described to me, like I could feel that threat of my survival of if I'm different, there's a threat that I will die because I am different. And I mean, as a queer woman and yeah, just a woman in general, that there is a threat for being of that identity always, but for the most part, like yeah, I do not feel the threat of being different anymore. It actually feels like a superpower for me to stand apart and to be different, and that my authenticity is like a gift to myself and to others, and like not to sound freaking full of myself, but just like showing up as myself like feels like everything that I need to be doing now and for the foreseeable future. And being visible like that. Here I am. Hello. Like that work allowed me to show up and have the audacity to just share my thoughts about all of this stuff on the internet for everyone to see and hear. So whether or not you believe in past lives, I do feel like it's worth mentioning because it has absolutely been like a golden nugget to navigate all of this like transformation. And just as a reminder, discover yourself, which will help you discover who you are without all the BS and the programming of the family and the lineage and all of that. Can absolutely be a really powerful tool to cut through all of that and focus on learning who you are and what's important to you, your values, your strengths, your weaknesses, and overall life assessment. Discover Yourself launches for the early birds, which you can sign up for free for at a discount on the 21st of December, and to the public launches on December 28th. So I'm excited and I can't wait to see you soon on the next episode.